Hi, welcome to the PSA Experience. I'm Andrew, here with Colton today. How you doing, Colton?
Good. I'm doing pretty good. I've been better, but I'm really, really happy to be here. And,
Awesome. Thank you for coming. So, can you just, for the audience, to let them know like what your kind of roles are and what you do here at PLU?
Sure. So I've pretty much been an artist my whole life, and in high school I sort of transitioned that sort of love for design. I sort of turned that more into towards graphic work because I kept having people who wanted to pay me to do art and designs and stuff for them. And then, coming to PLU, I basically just started doing that sort of same stuff here and got to the point where I was getting paid by organizations like Impact and a couple other people on campus to do all sorts of jobs. And the university eventually was just like, hey, you should come work for us. So I've been working with PLU's marketing communications department for about a year now, and been doing a lot of really cool projects and stuff with them. And I'm just really happy that they trust me enough to let me do a lot of the really cool designs and stuff for them.
So some of the signs and kind of symbols that you use, is there any particular things you go about when deciding like what like symbolic things you might put in there, and like what ways you want those signs or symbols to portray something that you're talking about?
Yeah. No, I absolutely use symbolism all the time in my pieces. I think that a big part of graphic design is sort of, it's either solving a problem or it's sort of more commercially, like what I've kind of been doing recently. It's communicating a message as quickly as possible. And my favorite medium is always going to be posters, I think. So using symbols and just powerful icons really kind of drive home a message. One example that I can think of is one of the latest posters I did for PLU was for Witness Uganda, which was really, really cool project, musical written by these two playwrights who wanted to raise money to help send these kids to school from Uganda. And they created this whole musical for it, and they've been touring the country, and people seem to love it. And part of the story where that symbolism, part of the story was one of the playwrights, he was from New York City, and he sort of was rejected there in a sense, and he sort of came to Uganda and sort of found a different sort of way to care for people and care for himself. And in the poster, which you guys will probably show right now, I flipped the sort of iconic New York skyline upside down at the top of the poster, and I have on the other bottom side of the poster, I have sort of this beautiful Ugandan landscape. And I think that just for the people that I first showed the picture to, they were very provoked by like, why would you turn the skyline on its head like that? So, drawing attention to something by taking something that's iconic like the New York skyline and flipping it on its head sort of subverts expectations and makes for a better piece, I think.
Awesome. So you mentioned the Witness Uganda one. Some of my favorites that you've done are the late night ones are really cool, like the Friends and Seinfeld ones. Are there any of your favorites that you've used a lot of certain symbols for that you think have been super effective in conveying what you're trying to get at, or just favorites in general that you've liked, that you've worked on?
Yeah, I think Late Night's a really good example of me doing a lot of parody art and taking something that is, iconic, something that's like the TV show Friends or Titanic or any of these other Christmas movies that we've spoofed, and basically they just tell me, hey, we want to do these movies, and I just go and have fun with all the photos that I have of Sam. And I've probably cropped him out of photos about 1 million times on Photoshop at this point, but that's why I love doing those late night posters. They give me a lot of that freedom.
Yeah, that sounds
I think that symbolically, a lot of the work that I do, I try and sometimes with posters or things like plays, I think that it's too hard to represent the entire play in a convoluted mess of things on a portrait or on a picture. So I basically will wind up taking one element or something that's really symbolic of the whole play and making that the poster. And I think that was the case. One example I can think of is Fences. I did that, you mentioned earlier. My buddy Josh directed that play, and he came to me and he asked me for something really great, and it was one of the first things I thought of. Just, you know, using for the play fences, I used the fence in the poster, and but I think the fence was really symbolic to what the play was about, and sort of, you know, I think one of the taglines from the film was, or from the play was, you know, some people build fences to keep others out, and other people build fences to keep the things they like in. And, you know, I think that was a good sort of symbolic metaphor for a lot of the stuff going on in the play, and I think that it fit perfectly with the theme. So
yeah. Is there any projects where you've just been really stuck on, like they kind of give you a prompt to do and you just are totally stumped, and kind of how do you navigate that challenge?
Yeah. One of the posters I did this year for Marcom was for a guitar festival, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out really cool ways to like incorporate guitars, and I probably went through, maybe like 10 different versions of the poster, and I wasn't really happy with it, and I think my boss, he could tell I wasn't really happy with it, so he kept pushing me, and eventually I just got inspiration from this ribbon that I had lying around, and we'll pull up the picture, but I basically was able to take this idea for this ribbon and turn it into the shape of the body of the guitar and everything like that, and I think it turned out really well, but it wouldn't have turned out that well if I hadn't been patient and I hadn't taken my time and just kept going at it. And it's honestly exhausting coming up or just putting pen to paper and trying to be creative. It drains your brain after a little while, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Is there any maybe advice you would give to people that are trying to start maybe going down a path of like graphic design, of like how to deal with problems like that, or just in general, like,
yeah,
like how do you find inspiration for these ideas that you do?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that mantra that you know, artists, you know, great artists always just steal. I think that's very true. I think that a lot of my work and a lot of my pieces are inspired from collections of all sorts of other stuff, as well as things that I see and stuff like that. So, you know, I think a piece of advice from me would just be pay attention to the world around you, because there's a lot of little quirky things and little objects that I think that can go a long way to inspire people and sort of bring out a sort of creative drive in themselves. You know, I think that also it's not always about what you learn in class. I think there's a lot of stuff that you can learn on the internet and YouTube. I'm less involved in the design community here, but a lot of my stuff just came from practicing myself, having fun in Adobe Photoshop, and just, yeah, really just going to town on stuff that I want to do. And, you know, I think that you don't have to have a big client or like you know, an official company or something like that, or like a real event that you're making a poster for. Just go nuts. I think that people can come up with something in their heads and make a design for it, and I think that will continue to inspire other people. And I think that you know, it doesn't have to be real, but it can be whatever you want.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. This is Colton. He's a graphic designer, among other creative entrepreneurships, I guess you could say.
You could say that, yeah.
And this is a PSA Experience.